Living between Wednesdays, just trying to get by to the next fix. Living between Wednesdays, prefer the comics over the Netflix.
What's up, folks? I'm your host Konrad on Wednesday Night Reviews, and I'm joined today by Sam Willis and Primm to talk about their new Kickstarter comic, Raze. So guys, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Awesome. So first and foremost, we're here to talk about your Kickstarter, but I always do like to ask, who is it that I'm speaking to, so that the way the people out there in YouTube land can know who they're looking at and know why they should support your comic. So, you know what? Trey, we'll have you go first for this one. Trey, who is Primm?
Let's see. Trey, self-proclaimed artist, self-proclaimed adult, the co-creator of Raze Comics, and I also do the artwork. Located on the East Coast. We've been in this game for quite a little bit, and just happy to be here, man.
Awesome. And Sam, who is Sam Willis?
I'll kind of piggyback that. So, lover of all types of storytelling, comics, movies, TV shows. If it's got a good story, I'm interested. I'm from the East Coast as well. So, yeah, just lovers of all things that are food related, good storytelling, and, you know, anything with an interesting conversation, I'm there.
Awesome. I love it. Well, then absolutely, let's make sure we have one. So we are here to talk about your Kickstarter. So as I understand it, the first 4 issues of your book are out, and you're kickstarting the 5th issue. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes, that is right. And this is our first Kickstarter. So number 5 is really our first go at Kickstarter. So yeah.
Okay. How did you guys do the first 4 comics? Did you just make and release them and then sell them as per? Like, was there any other sort of promotion or like GoFundMe or something?
No, that was just kind of, we made them. We started a little following on like Facebook. We made a Facebook page and some social medias, and that's really where we did most of our marketing. But a lot of it, we went in person to like stores and you got your indie comic websites that we were posting on that too. So we've gone a few different routes before Kickstarter.
Nice. Okay. And you know what? Let's jump right into the comic. What is Raze?
Oh man, that's a loaded question. So to give you kind of the elevator pitch. So our main character has a rare condition, and you kind of see this virus outbreak in the States. And pretty much as the story goes along, you're going to either see that the main character is either the solve all, or he's going to throw humankind into damnation. So it's kind of following that course, I would say. In a nutshell, it's kind of like everything zombie related with a deep understanding of character study. So a lot of inspirations on this comic when we were kind of creating it.
I like it. What were some of those inspirations?
Definitely, well, we were gamers back in the day, so definitely one that I think people will kind of notice is Left 4 Dead. That was like our go-to zombie killing game. You know, Last of Us, 28 Days Later, we're a fan of all zombie content. We haven't obviously watched everything zombie related, but we are huge fans. We always try to put in a zombie movie wherever we can.
Right on. And when it came to actually making Raze, because I'm always curious how the process starts, when did you guys first start working on it, and then when did the first issue come out, and how long ago was that?
Let me see. Let me get this to you the most straight answer I can. So, we started this back in 2007, I think. 2007, when we were in like middle school, and we were just kind of coming up with ideas and stuff like that. And like you said, we were big gamers, and we wrote this as a game originally.
Oh, okay.
Found out making games is a lot harder than we thought. So a few years later, we said, all right, let's make a graphic novel. Turns out that's also really hard too. And then we said, all right, you know what? Let's do comics. Comics we can do. Also very hard, but it's definitely doable, as you can see. So I think it was back in 2019. Is that when we dropped the first one?
Yeah, so issue 1 I think has been out for almost 3 years now. So probably 2.5 years ago. So I'd say 2019, 2020.
Oh, it was like right at the beginning of 20 is when we dropped issue 1. We had worked on that for about 2 years before, because for those of you who don't know, we actually did do a couple of renditions of issue 1, looked at it, weren't happy with it. We said, throw it away. We got to start over. And we started over again. And now here we are.
Beautiful. And from actually the look of it, it does appear to be a full digital comic. Is that right? Like when you're
but we are doing physical too. It's just I think digital is a little bit more accessible to the consumer right now, especially with everything going on. But we were in, I mean, just this past year we were in 30 physical stores on the East Coast. So we had physical copies and we were putting them out to the public, but it's kind of whoever's going to accept us, wherever we can put it. So, I mean, we're not signed to a publisher.
Mm-hmm.
We're fully indie right now. So we're trying to put it out in any format we possibly can.
Oh, absolutely. And I think going the digital route, like you said, it's super easy. It makes distribution and email, which is great.
Yeah.
And when it comes to the actual comic being made, like the physical comic, the art for it, that is all digital, right?
Originally, yes.
Yes.
Okay, I like that. Originally, yes. So what is it now?
It's a complicated process, but let's just say it's a mixture of both. I know for a fact, like issue 5, which if you want to see issue 5, you can go to our Kickstarter. We got a few page previews up there, and I think Trey started, digital, and we've been trying to find a really good groove this year. And he's super efficient and really good at doing it on pencil and paper.
Okay.
But we're a little bit of both, I would say, and I think that's what's going to really make our, visuals pop even harder.
For sure, agreed. Like one thing I do really like is, because I've got the 4 issues on my other monitor here.
Mm-hmm.
The difference in, I think what'll hit people when they're reading it is the difference in sort of shading between, especially the first and fourth, because I noticed the colors. It's primarily, I guess it'd be a grayscale comic, white, black, and gray. But yeah, the level of detail as well as the way that everything is colored, I don't know, shaded, I guess. It definitely, you can tell, which is really cool.
Yes.
So, talking about the Kickstarter, obviously, we want people to go and check it out. How long has it been running on for, and how long will it be running for?
Yeah, so it's a 30-day campaign. So for the Kickstarter, we're trying to raise $2,000, and for that, we're putting it right back into the comic. So obviously, have to factor in sending out all these tiers and whatnot, but it's going to be it's going to be interesting because this is our first Kickstarter, and it's our first go at it. So I think definitely learning a lot with this Kickstarter. So yeah, we're super excited just because this is kind of the first time we've ever put out merch too. Like we have a lot of rewards on the Kickstarter where we've never done before. Like one of them's a variant cover. So that's our first ever variant cover. And if you've either read Raze or you've seen our comic, our covers are very, I think, different from anything comic book related. So this was kind of a way to, I think, go back to, excuse me.
It's all good.
To go back into the comic book, I think, route of, having more of a traditional comic book cover than I think what we've been doing these past few years with our covers.
All right. I mean, I definitely have to say the covers on these, striking. That's for sure.
Yes.
What I love is that you've kept the lettering for Raze, I think, dead center. It's probably just, yeah, it is.
It looks a little bit off, but I promise it is in the center.
Well, I've got 4 tabs open and I'm bouncing between them, and it squeaked, and I'm like, wait, is that me? No, that's me. But yeah, though, they have this really iconic look to them because you've got R-A-Z or Z-E, and then you've got, for issue 1, all these hands. Issue 2 is the busted glass, tire for 3, and then for 4 the junkyard piles. And I think that's just, it looks iconic. It's really cool.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You also have what must be the most charming dedication at the front of the comic. So for when people get their hands on it and they see it themselves, what is the dedication to, and why did you want to include it?
Yeah, so kind of get a little bit dark, unfortunately, but my mom passed away, I think, a few months before issue 1 was actually physical and out to the public. We've been working on this for as many years as I can count on my hand, and probably more. She was always in the early renditions of like reading it and being supportive when we couldn't write and we weren't good.
The ones we threw away, she read them.
Yeah. Okay. So it was always, and it's always something that, you know, after those events happened, I always like see it on socials, and it's true, is like you kind of remember the celebrities who died, but you don't know these average Joes who maybe had an impact on a certain person. So it was a way to thank her for being a supporter in the very beginning. And also, you know, everyone who picks up this issue, she lives on through the story. Like, you know, you're reading her name, and in a sense, at least to me, it's like she's carrying on with this whole project with us, you know?
Absolutely. Well, one, thank you for sharing that. My condolences, and I think that's a beautiful way to memorialize her. That's actually awesome.
Oh, absolutely.
And yeah, especially with all the support that she would have given you both.
Yeah.
So for the Kickstarter campaign, I always like to ask this kind of stuff because it's fun. You've mentioned you have a variant cover. What other tiers are you going after, or are you going to be providing?
Yeah, so if you go to our Kickstarter, you will see a list of tiers, just because we tried to put something together, and I try to stress this as much as possible. When me and Trey were going through these motions of doing the first Kickstarter, was making it affordable for people, because ultimately we know, like, we're an indie comic, you've never heard of us, you're taking a chance on us, but we want to make it worth your while. So anyone who hasn't read Raze, you can actually go to our Kickstarter and you can catch up on all physical and digital tiers. So if you haven't read issue 1, 2, 3, and 4, we bundle them together. So I think for digitally, issues 1 through 5 is going to be $12. So for that, you're getting like an issue for about $2.40, which in our opinion is a steal, you know? A lot of the other tiers too, we've tried, like, we kind of touched upon it earlier, is the merch. So we got 64-bit keychains. We have a Bucky poster, which super important to the story and really iconic to the cover we picked, because it's actually a rendition of the Amazing Spider-Man cover that I'm sure thousands of people have seen, but we kind of Razified it. We got the variant cover, like I said, and we also came up with this really cool sticker pack, like something that's just fun and, you know, something that you would want, and it's zombie-esque, but it's just us, you know, having a fun time and making something that you guys might want to purchase. And then obviously we have on some of the higher tiers too, we have our first official Raze dad hat, so you can get kind of the Raze text embroidered. Yep, which is cool. And then for the highest tier, which some of the higher tiers are a little bit limited just because with the time frame we have, and obviously the art team trying to work to get this issue out and everything, we have one tier where if you go on our Kickstarter page, we actually like animated all of our team members except one team member who kind of looks like a mystery character in a video game. But we kind of we like made them drawings, colored it. So we're gonna do that for anyone who wants to purchase the highest tier, but we're actually gonna make you one of our infected. So Trey's
you get drawn by me.
Yep, Trey's gonna draw it. So he's going to be drawing it, and then we're going to have our storyboard / the man who does all the promotional art for us that you see on this Kickstarter, Ben Willis, little brother. He's going to be coloring that. So you're going to get a physical copy of this, you know, and we're going to sign it, and, you know, it's going to be awesome. We're excited.
Beautiful. I'm glad to hear it. One thing I did want to say, because you've aimed for what I'm sure seems like a relatively low number, $2,000.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect idea. What I have talked with people, and hopefully this brings you both some confidence or peace of mind or whatever, but a lot of people, especially when it's your first time doing a Kickstarter and it's not something you've done before, people might not know you. What I have been told time and time again is aim low, and basically what'll probably end up happening is you'll hit your mark, which is great because then you can get your comic out there. If nothing else, you get to say, hey, I made a comic. Typically what happens though, especially if you do well, you like you're doing with me, promote it, talk with people about it, you can all of a sudden it'll be, oh, we just hit $3,000, or so on and so forth. And it's like, okay, what can we do extra? What can we do? What's the extra thing we can add in? What's another tier we can do?
Oh yeah, I didn't even touch upon that because like we have stretch goals too.
Okay,
so
you already got it going.
Yeah, we already got them in place. So like one of the coolest ones, and this has nothing to do with Raze, but it's pretty cool for anybody who loves comics, is as soon as we hit our 2K goal, we're shooting for 3K, because as soon as we hit 3,000, you're gonna get, I believe it's 6 different indie comics from the community. So I've talked to a lot of these creators, and we're trying to put together a digital bundle for everybody. So, you're going to get all these different genres that you might be interested in, you might not, and you might love them, So it's kind of like this way to shine the light on different creators and also give you guys something too as well.
I dig it. I think that's an awesome idea.
Yeah.
Thank you. Done. Honestly, you know what? The more indie comics we can get in people's hands, the better. Exactly. Obviously, Raze first. But yeah, I think that's awesome.
Well, we're down to share the limelight. Everybody needs a little attention on their project. We're just out here trying to shine that light on people.
Perfect. I love it. So Trey, tell me, when it comes to drawing Raze and the way that you've chosen to basically, well, not animate, illustrate everything, what are some of the challenges you had when it came to making the world look the way that it did, and sort of, I guess, specifically separating Raze from every other comic, about zombies that's out there, whether it's The Walking Dead or, whatever the next thing in line is. How did you do that? Like, what was your process?
Oh man, so it was quite the journey, because I say this on all the videos I've done so far. So I couldn't draw that well when we first started. So when we picked up issue 1, I did the first half of that. And I went in there completely blind. I had no idea what composition was. I had no idea how to draw human anatomy or anything like that. I've drawn a little bit in the past, but nothing ever remotely close to what I'm doing now. So it was a lot of learning. I believe I'm still learning a bit how to draw certain things, but I would say it was really just a process of doing it over and over again. You kind of get a little bit better each time. And I'd say what sets us apart from other comics is we really try to get, as you mentioned, like the grayscale. There's black and white, but there's so many shades of gray in between, and you can get so much depth to it. And I really tried to hone in on that gray shading and just imagining what the color would look like if you put like a black and white filter on there, and just kind of getting that in between, because a lot of comics is just absolute black. A lot of them deal in absolute black, and I want to kind of get a full spectrum just to get you something a bit visually different.
I like it. I honestly, it's something that, because I've never really illustrated or drawn anything before, it's definitely something that it's interesting to get that kind of a take on, and I highly enjoy it. So thank you. One thing I will ask then is sort of a question for both of you. The monsters, the creatures, the infected, the zombies, whatever you want to call them in Raze here, they aren't what I would describe as like a typical zombie. In my head, when I first read it, I'm like, oh, okay, they're kind of like rage monsters. They're just like really, really insanely pissed off people. How did you come up with the concept for it to not be just like a zombie or whatever, but to what it is? And how did you choose how you were going to render them? Like how vicious they were going to look, or, veins in eyes and in their face, stuff like that.
Yeah, so this is kind of a loaded question. So once, just so everybody knows, they are called infected. That's what we're coining them as. They are not called zombies.
It's under the zombie umbrella, and yeah. I've seen a lot of debate back and forward in the zombie community on, are they still considered zombies? They're still under the umbrella. So technically, yes, they're zombies, but infected nonetheless.
They're zombie-esque.
Okay.
Okay.
I like it.
Fancy. Pinky
yes.
out.
So the idea really just came from, I mean, this comic started from a what if question, and I think when you see our comic, and it's what we strive to do on all lanes of this creation and this idea and the production, is we always try to do things differently. Things you wouldn't expect from a comic, character, story, whatever it is. The idea though was there was always this story where it was human and it was zombie. But nobody talked about that middle part. We kind of just skipped over that. So and it came from a lot of conversations from me and Trey, is what is that middle part? What does it look like? How does it operate? And kudos to Trey, because you could ask him all about this infection and how it works. He's fired on all cylinders on how it works, where it comes from, everything going into that. Because that was important. You're creating this mythology in a sense. So you need to know all the ins and outs of how does it work? What does it look like? What is their behavior like? What tendencies do they have? All that.
Interesting. Okay. And Trey, when it came to actually, because it sounds like you've done quite a bit of research, when it came to, time to draw them and how to depict your infected people through various stages of infection, how did you start that process? Like, was it a lot of creepy medical Googling, or what did you do to get to where you are now?
I think we had a lot of ideas going into what they would look like. So we just said, all right, infected, they're going to have this. And we listed off 10 characteristics. And then we said, all right, now we got to trim the fat. What makes sense? What doesn't make sense? What is somewhat plausible? What is not plausible? And we really narrowed it down to I think the biggest thing that people love with zombies or infected is that they do still resemble a person. And I really didn't want to go too overboard as to make them not look like people, or at least to me, when you do a zombie, when they have their jaw is missing and flesh is missing, they lose that human aspect to them. Mm-hmm. So I'd say doing just these veins sticking out, this bloodshot eyes and stuff like that, just really capture the human aspect, but just kind of put it a little bit over, like Sam was saying, that in between of human and what we know them to be.
Awesome. I mean, it certainly comes across, like I said, when I was going through it, and there's the initial scene where, or not in the initial scene, but one of the early scenes where they're on the bridge from the original issue, the first issue, and just the person comes up and starts smacking the window, or when they try and drive away and the person grabs the one woman's hair and just holds on to her. It was very interesting because it wasn't just it's this slowish walking person who's gonna eat you. It was oh crap, it's this guy's coming to get you. So I appreciated that, because it wasn't just I've seen zombies before, cool, I know what they're doing. It put a new spin on it that I hadn't seen, that some of the games you mentioned earlier where they have more aggressive characters that are a lot faster made it interesting.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Another thing I did definitely want to ask about was the people, the non-infected people. I don't particularly think I would like any of them as real people.
We did our job.
Yes. Let's go.
Would you, either of you, care to explain why that is and what people can expect?
I mean, this project's been in our head for quite some time. So we've spent a lot of time with these people, and Trey can co-sign on this. When we first created them, it was kind of we love Left 4 Dead, and we're our world's going to be so dangerous. You need 8 people. And like we said, we were doing a video game. We weren't doing a comic. So let's stick to 8 people. And then, 10 years later, we still got 8 characters in our head, and we're like, oh yeah, we're doing a comic. Let's make 8 people in a comic work. And no one's done it before, and let's just see how it goes. And a lot of these people we've had time with, but they all sounded the same at the beginning. So it was kind of like this thing of, okay, how can we make these characters feel remembered? Okay, we need to go over the top with a lot of people we're doing. And that's, I think, what you're going to see with a lot of these characters. You know, we introduced ideas, I think, in issue 4, which go us because it was a last minute idea, but it kind of brought out everything from these characters. You kind of like, I had conversation with my friends who were like, yeah, we didn't know that this character would react this way. And it's like, it's interesting to kind of like throw this thing in the middle, and you're just kind of getting this sporadic effect of all these characters like, oh yeah, we have to do this. No, we have to do this. No, we have to do this. And it kind of just creates this really, I think to us, this interesting dynamic.
You know what? Totally agreed. Like one thing that when I hear someone say, "Oh, it's a zombie comic," I immediately go, "Okay, cool. So we're gonna get a lot of interpersonal discussion, probably around morals and ethics of actions, right? Of, you know, should we kill these people? Should we not? Blah blah blah." I think every zombie-related thing in the last 15 years, at least, has had that. What I definitely like about this comic, and like I said, I don't particularly think I like any of these characters, is like none of these people are like the doctor, the teacher, the cop. I'm not sure if these people, other than the fact that they've got a car, are employed. I like that you...
No.
It feels like they're random 8 people. They really are. They're just doing their thing, and then all of a sudden they're stuck in traffic on this bridge and the world goes to hell. How did you... I don't even know how to phrase the question, I guess, but like, what made you want to write those characters to be such... Well, obviously you want to be... Yeah, you want to be memorable. And like you said, there's scenes later on, like especially in the 4th book, where characters start making choices independently of everyone else to just try and, I guess, survive or make the world better. And it does create some really weird interactions. How did you, as a team, decide on that kind of stuff?
Let's see. So, like Sam was saying, is these characters, at least to us, when you're doing a book, they have to be over the top, because as opposed to like a show or a movie, you can do these little intricate pieces of characteristics and get little nuances of character. And over time, you'll get to, you know, see what the character is. But, you know, if I only have 24 pages to get your attention and to explain to you what this is, because someone may not pick up the next book, is they got to be over the top. They got to be in your face and generate a response, whether it's positive or negative. It's got to generate a response. And then I think just the reason behind having all these characters is, you know, these are fairly young characters, and a lot of zombie or just apocalyptic works of art, they're always, you know, immediately working together. And growing up on the East Coast, we're like, all right, but what about people who don't want to work together? There's always that one person who doesn't want to work together, and there's a difference of opinion. And drama creates more opportunity for story. You know, if everybody was on board, we'd make it out of here in the next 3 seconds.
Yeah,
you know,
they'd be skipping down the street. It'd be the Raze series would be over.
Sunshines and rainbows, exactly. So it's really, it's not just a matter of, you know, we think this is different and cool, but it also does push a lot of the story forward. Is that clashing of heads and that clashing of ideals from these characters does push the story forward quite a bit.
Awesome.
I did want to add one thing too, just to what Trey was saying, is it is also the immaturity of these characters. Like you see, like, you know, they're not a 35-year-old adult with like a family and kids. Like they're immature, and that creates this pocket of opportunity to be like, okay, how are we going to mature them up? How are they going to grow? How is their arc going to end up? And that gives us the opportunity, even as raging a-holes as they are and don't want to work together, it creates this opportunity where maybe one day they could.
Love it. You know what? I think that's a fantastic way, one, to phrase it in general for anyone making comics or writing stories, period. But also for this comic, I think that works beautifully. One thing I did make sure I want to ask you, Trey, was outside of the infected attacks and, you know, violent things that happen in the book, there's also a fair bit of discussion and talking and people, you know, posturing and doing stuff that would, generally speaking, be really boring, right? And so you end up drawing a lot of, like, people talking. Your work with proportion as well as just posture and figure, I found it really good. Like when you were going through and the way that whomever of the two of you decided it would break up panels in certain pages to either make us focus on someone or a whole room. All of it came together really well. So I guess, Trey, just to start with, when it came to actually drawing people, you mentioned this is sort of, as I understand it, your first comic series, right? How did you work on that skill? And what is your favorite and least favorite position to draw someone in?
All right, I'd say in order, I winged it, man. I'm gonna be completely honest. I'd love to give you this.
I'd say favorite. It always has to be from like an angle, like a side, because when you're drawing them straight on,
You have to deal with like symmetry and stuff like that, and that drives me nuts. You know, I'll have one eye up here and one eye is like slightly above that one, then I move it and I can't get it just right, and it drives me crazy. So angles is always my strong suit. Believe it or not, drawing people in like a static pose is it still a bit easier to me, because once you get into like dynamics and the flow of posing, and I've read a lot of like books on this, and I've watched a lot of videos since then on how to do this correctly. And there's a lot of like this like action line you have to follow when you're doing a dynamic pose. So like somebody running or jumping and things like that, there's this, and just going off the way the book describes it, is there's this action line you have to do, and you have to draw this person in this like flow of motion, as opposed to static. It's just very like I can whip out a hand doing something like that, you know, so on and so forth. So I definitely do want to get more into that, and you will see more dynamic drawings like in 5 on. But yeah, definitely side angles, static poses, love
them. One thing that continually comes up every Comic-Con I go to, every artist panel, all that kind of stuff. How do you feel about hands?
Oh boy. Oh boy, you said the H word, man.
Triggered.
Dude, I hated hands when I first started. Those freaking arm spiders always drove me crazy. They'd always come out like little noodles attached at the end of your arm. I think now I got a little bit of a handle on it. I'm not quite perfect just yet, but I'm starting to get a hang of how to draw hands. I actually picked up, if there's anybody out there who actually is new to drawing or wants to learn to draw, what I used. These guys are very good. They have a Kickstarter as well, not a sponsor. Masters of Anatomy. They have quite a few books out now. They have, I think, 9 books out currently. So I got a full volume that goes through poses, anatomy, different body styles, you know, fighting, stuff like that. And they just dropped another book that I have digitally, and that's going to go over facial expressions and actually how to draw hands. And they go through all the different poses and angles and stuff like that, and that helps me tremendously. And I mean, if I showed people what I started off before as to where I am now, they'd be like, oh my God, you know, and that's in a span of like maybe 6 months. So definitely worth picking up if there's anyone new to drawing, but that certainly helped out a lot, especially with hands.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad to hear that you've got some solid resources that you're liking, because I know sometimes finding ones that you like is half the battle, and it's definitely paying off. One of the cool things that I get to see a lot, because I do talk to indie folks who are maybe making their comic for the first time, or have only ever done comics, you know, once a week maybe I'll do one drawing, and now they're like, all right, every day I gotta draw. I've got to see a lot of people develop skills from issue 1 to issue 4 or 5, you know, on a Kickstarter, and it's always so cool to get to see that level of detail and your way you can illustrate and render just skyrocket, and it's so cool to see. Me personally, I'm a fan of Tony Daniel, famous artist on Batman, Nocterra, a few other things. One thing that he does well that I'm noticing that you do is cloth. I know him most from Batman, and so I've seen him draw Batman's cape and cowl like a billion times, and he always has these super detailed takes on how the cape, you know, wraps around the shoulder and all that kind of stuff. And what I think is super cool is I'm seeing in how you're drawing basically all cloth. Truck driver in a tow truck suit, woman with a t-shirt on, the way that cloth like pulls when they twist, sits weird when they get all bunched up, and it does all sorts of weird stuff. You've got a really good handle on it, so keep going, Trey, please. It looks great.
Appreciate it.
From a writing perspective, Sam, is there a particular scene that maybe overall so far, again, not too many spoilers if we can avoid it, is there a scene from the first book as well as maybe another scene from what is already out that you enjoyed writing a lot?
Oh yeah, I think I mean, just to clarify, Trey is also the co-writer as well, so we toss ideas back and forth, so he's a man of many talents. I think, and I don't know if Trey feels the same way, but if you read issues 1 through 4, there's two things that stand out to me. Visually would be issue 4 on how, because Trey was kind of on the final inking process of that issue and showing like daylight and the dark tones and the flashlight, like that's all him. And that was done incredibly. Like just to show daytime is just a cool concept. Like something that I absolutely loved and just created this kind of horror factor. As far as story-wise go, I think, you know, every issue we write, we kind of go in with this mindset of what can the theme be of this issue? And issue 1 was kind of like this oh shit moment of like, yo, we're not telling you much and you're just seeing people getting messed up.
Agreed.
And I think the coolest thing, so it's a tie because like for me, it's always the characters and always having this mental notion like anxiety, PTSD, and one of our characters, Victoria, experiences that from issue 1, I think all the way to 3, and you kind of see that in, I wouldn't call it a flashback, but this almost like inside looking in her head and seeing what she's thinking. And then the other notion, because like we didn't initially intend for it, is like finding a little boy on the bridge and like his dad dies on the bridge, spoiler alert, and it just creates this whole like deeper notion of this bridge massacre that you initially probably weren't thinking of.
You know what? I'll definitely say for a fact that when they came across the kid, for me, that was the oh shit moment, right? Like I've read enough and watched enough TV that I'm at the point where I'm like, shit goes sideways. I'm like, yeah, okay, cool. Like, let's roll with the ball. But like, yeah, when they, I believe they're crawling under one car, and all this, the kid's just there, and he's like, Daddy, and it's like, uh-oh.
Yeah.
it was a really surreal moment to read it too, because it was like, oh, that's not a good spot to be in, kid. Holy hell.
Yeah.
So good on both of you to be able to come up with such a shitstorm.
Thank you. Best compliment we could ever get.
So, you know what? Then another one I've got for you, because like you mentioned earlier, Sam, Trey is co-writing the book with you. Often when there's one writer and one artist, I find that level of who does what can either get really firmly drawn in the sand or it's really flexible. It sounds like you're pretty flexible with both of you. What is the creative process like for both of you when making Raze?
I mean, honestly, it's kind of like the way I can compare it, just because 1, we're huge fans, and 2, it's just like the perfect combination is like Matt Stone and Trey Parker from South Park, because one, we do everything last minute, and two, it's, I don't know, it's this weird thing where, you know, we talked about what if questions, and that's just kind of how my brain works. So it's almost like I'm like, hey, let's do this, and Trey's like thinking for like 20 minutes, and he's like, no, that doesn't work. And I'm like, what do you mean it doesn't work? And then we kind of have these like conversations, and I'm like, oh yeah, you're right. I'm like, okay, what if this happens? And then we kind of go through the whole same thing. So he pulls back the crazy idea leash that I kind of throw out there.
To build off what he's saying, I think because we think so differently, like he'll come up with like 50 ideas in like literally 2 minutes. And I'm like, dude, how do you think that fast? And I'm just like, all right, one idea. And I branch off from that one. All right, but if this happens, does that work? If this happens, does that work? And I just go through this long process of, does this one idea pan out over like, you know, the course of the entire series? And he's like, yo, I've got like 10 ideas waiting for you. You need to hurry up.
Yeah. Apologies. It's also too, like, I think, not to go more on the mentor side, but like, you know, I think one thing that writers, and especially us, that we've learned is always a question of like, why, especially in the zombie genre. Like, it's always like, yeah, why are you guys going in a bus infested with zombies? Oh, it's cool. That's it. So it's always just like, why are we doing this? And that always stops us from having, I think, mediocre ideas. We kind of stray away from that, which helps us. So I kind of think it's like a really good rule of thumb, at least on our team. Also
Perspective, because I think when you have one writer, yes, it can be good, and then the vision stays consistent. But I think without someone to like bounce the idea off of, you don't know how well your idea can be perceived. And if you can't get your idea perceived in a way that other people can understand or enjoy, it's going to fall flat. You know, so I would encourage people, you know, if you have an idea, tell more people, bounce some ideas back and forth. You know, not everybody's going to like it. Yes, that's unfortunately not the case, but, you know, it's definitely going to get you more insight to your story, how you're writing things, especially when you put something out there, how the public receives it. You know, you need people to kind of judge how well something's going to work for you too.
Interesting. I like that. Again, it's one of those things where, because I haven't gone through that process, it's just something I wouldn't have thought of. So it's always cool to be able to get that. Fantastic. You know what? Truth be told, questions from me, I think I'm covered. But I do like to ask, is there anything else that you guys want to talk about?
Sure, you want to go?
What?
You want to go first?
Anything I want to talk about? I mean, I think we covered everything on my end. Unless there's anything like Kickstarter specific you want to get into. I'm just the guy who draws stuff, so I don't have much.
and writes.
That too. So I don't have much to go off of, but if you want, that's all yours.
Okay, so I think the last thing we can kind of leave on a little bit is the Kickstarter. This is our first Kickstarter campaign. We've got a bunch of cool rewards. The entry price to donate and to back us is $3. So like, come help us out. We're trying to do the best we can with what we have. You know, we got a lot of cool rewards, and we got a lot of cool insight on this story. There's actually a section on the Kickstarter. We have this awesome group shot of these people, of these characters, and Trey was awesome enough to put it together and take weeks to put it together on his phone, by the way. He does everything on his phone as an artist.
Okay, I want to elaborate on that later. As you were saying, keep on going.
So yeah, I mean, we got a lot of cool stuff. Like, we have this thing in Kickstarter where it has this big group photo, but you know, there's a lot of stuff we're keeping out with these characters that we're going to tell in the future. And I think that gives you a little preview, kind of gives you a breakdown of each character. And we did it in a fun way. We kind of labeled each character so you can go up and down and kind of look at their bios, try to make it as interactive as possible. Most important thing is issue 5. Look at those preview pages. Get excited. This is probably the first comic that I've read, and I'm a little bit biased, but I've told Trey, when I've read those pages he sent me, I feel anxiety, I feel fear, I feel the horror. I'm so proud of what we were able to do in these past 3.5 months with Kickstarter, and putting it out there. So come help us out. He's doing it on his phone. Give us some money so we can buy a tablet.
Yeah, so, okay, hold up. Phone?
Yeah. So
He's gonna need more info, Trey.
Yeah, what?
So, I pull up the app on my phone.
What app?
I'm using Clip Studio.
Clip Studio, okay.
So open up Clip Studio. I've got, what I'm going to be drawing for that day. And then I use my finger and I just kind of draw it all with my finger. So I used to have a Cintiq, a whole tablet, and the tablet broke. And the only thing I had was a phone. So I've been using my phone for quite some time to draw all the pages you guys have seen so far.
2 years.
For real, you're not punking me here.
I swear, I can open something right now.
I believe it. Damn, okay. That is wild. Okay, well then absolutely we got to make sure we can get you backed, and who knows, maybe we get you a tablet out of it.
And I did just break my phone too, people, by the way. It is broken. Yeah,
can we play some the sad dog song in the background so we can really encapsulate this Kickstarter?
Wait, that's copyright. We can't play that.
Review purposes.
We'll do an EDM remix or something,
That's insane. Okay, well, good to know. I think I have, but I guess 3 last questions. Truthfully, they've just come to mind. So one of them then I'll ask is sort of one question just for both of you. Have you yet hit the point mentally where you are Sam Willis, comic book writer, Trey Primm, comic book artist, or are you still Sam Willis and Trey Primm, dudes who happen to make comics?
Yeah, that moment hasn't happened yet. At least for me. We've gone to events and I've looked at Trey and people are like, "Aren't you gonna sign this comic?" And I'm like, I guess. I mean, do you want it? Like, it's always this thing where I'm just like confused, and I'm like, I'm just an average guy, I create a book, and that's I don't know if that will ever go away. I mean, maybe one day, give me the Pulitzer Prize, fill my ego till it bursts. I don't know what we got to do to make it happen, but as of right now, no, it hasn't manifested. Let's say.
Okay.
No.
Not yet?
Hasn't happened for me yet either. I mean, like you said, we've gone to events and a lot of random people come up and they ask us advice, like how do I start? Where do I begin? And I'm just like, dude, I don't know. I'm still figuring this out, man. I don't know what to tell you. I'm just a guy who happened to do a few things, and now I'm sitting here.
He just finger paints people.
I'm just finger painting on my phone. I don't know what I'm doing, man.
Perfect. Well, you know what? I hope that when it comes, because I'm sure it will, I hope you enjoy the moment, and I hope that you can enjoy the moment. You can have the time to sit back and actually go, "Holy shit, I am a comic book creator." Because like I said, I've talked to enough people now that a lot of them they're the same boat. They're like, "No, I'm just so and so dude who does comics." A few of them have been like, "Yeah, I'm a comic book writer. I'm a comic book artist." So it's cool to get to see you in like the larvae form before you become, comic book creators.
Absolutely.
My last question then for now, or my last hard question. You mentioned previously the entire series. So you're working on issue 5 now through Kickstarter. Again, reaching goal of $2,000 would be fully funded. You're on day 3 at the time of filming. Have you written issue 6, 7, 8? Like, do you know where the story ends, or is there like, yeah, we've got enough content written for X number of issues, or is it like, let's work on 5, now let's work on 6?
So the story as a whole, I'd say, is for the most part done. What I can say is we are nowhere near close to being done. This is going to be a very long, very what's the word I'm looking for? Very interesting story, and it does require a lot of commitment. At least for us, it's very, not, I wouldn't say very hard. It's just to me to tell such a compelling story in a limited amount of issues, like 5, 6, 7 issues. So you can certainly do that, but the story we're going for, we want something that's going to be long term, that like fans can really get a hold of and say like, "Well, remember way back when this happened in the comic book," stuff like that. So we have right now, I think, like finalized issues, maybe up to issue. What was the last one we did? Jesus, I think it was like 30. I think it was like 30, to be honest with you.
Okay.
But
yeah, we got the next 5 years planned out. Let's just say that.
And we're not done. And it will go a little bit further than that. I don't know by how much. It just depends on how each issue gets broken down from what we write to actual like comic form. So the actual number I don't know just yet, but just know there will be quite a few issues of Raze.
I love it, and I love the. It always astounds me the planning that goes into that, because the whole process of making a comic, while I am privy to a fair chunk of it because of what I do and who I get to talk to, I'm sure it's not all of it. That kind of planning on both of your parts is phenomenal. So
Thank you.
again, congratulations. Keep at it. And that takes us to my ending 2 questions for the interview. So I'll start with, objectively, I think the easier one, which is, what are you 2 reading right now?
So I've been trying to back as many people as I can on Kickstarter. So I've actually been in the indie realm, I think, a little bit as far as reading goes. Just read Decay 2 from Anthony Stokes. And I'm about to read Lost in Between Worlds. I don't remember his last name, but I know his first name is Edwin. So if you want to go look that up. So I'm probably going to be reading that tonight. But yeah, just been in the indie realm. There's a lot of crazy good creators out there that need our support and are trying to do something different. The things I've been seeing at the indie community is insane. It makes me want to be better and makes me want to strive for more as far as storytelling goes. So definitely a good medium to be in.
Awesome. Love it. And Trey, what about you? What are you reading at the moment?
Let's see. So I haven't read much at the moment because I'm always kind of, when we have free time, we're just working on the book itself. But let's see. So recently I've gotten a few issues of The Batman Who Laughs. I absolutely loved that story. I don't have all of them just yet, so I'm kind of working my way through that.
Nice.
We've picked up quite a few more horror books. I have a whole list of them. I'm just trying to remember what the names are. Those, I do read a lot of mangas as well, Japanese manga. So there was one, it's called Levius, I think. I started that, so I have book 1 and 2, and I'm almost finished with number 2. So that's what I'm doing right now.
Nice. I like it. And then, yeah, my last question for both of you is simply, what do you want your fans to know?
I want our fans to know that 2022 was crazy. We started off this year kind of on a little bit of a low as far as production came along. This year was all about working out the kinks. I think you're going to see in 2023 and the end of 2022 is we're going at full speed now. We're going to be trying to get as much of this story out as we possibly can because we want you guys to pick these up and read them and get immersed and have conversations about them, just like we are tonight.
Retweet.
Love it. Awesome.
I don't know. That might be too many characters, Trey.
Favorite.
You guys are awesome. Both of you, Sam, Trey, absolutely. Thank you so very much for taking the time to come on the show with me tonight, man.
Absolutely.
Thanks for having us.
Awesome. And for the folks out there in YouTube land, links down below. Check out the Kickstarter, check out everything you can for Raze 1 through 4, back the book, and I'll try and include links for everything else that we talked about here today. As always, like, comment, let me know what you thought of these two, and subscribe for more, and we'll see you next time.
Golden age to present, digest to oversize. Never miss new comic day, yeah, no surprise. So where's my no prize? Check the letter columns. Can't find issue 2? Collector problems, cliffhangers, mysteries, you need answers. When did Batman become Green Lantern? I get it, true believer, not lying. Always up for an awesome summer crossover tie-in.